Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fart Fetish podcast once again. It's that podcast where we seek to find the answer to what is fart fetish? Where might it come from? How is it enjoyed? And what are the people like who have this fetish and other fetishes too? We do this on every first Friday of the month on almost all major podcast platforms and at fartfetishpodcast.com. And if you like fart erotica, well, I've got some of that on thefartcloset.com. That's my erotica website. You can support the podcast just by checking out all the free stories, free captions, and more at thefartcloset.com. And I'm seeking erotic video collaborators, so if that's you like what I do, hit me up and let's talk. And now I'd like to introduce the Wizard Fartbane to the podcast. We definitely get into the origins of his name with all its gravitas, but also talk about the two fetishes nearest to his heart. Farting and inflation, which are, to some in their respective communities, very vehemently opposed fetishes. We get into a bit of Wiz's origins of the fetish, as well as his motivations for becoming a content creator. We also talk a fair bit about video games and other media in the context of fetishes and mainstream normalization. There's really so much we talk about in this episode, so let's get right to the Fart Fetish podcast. Thanks very much for being here, the Wizard Fartbane. Why don't we start with a little bit about yourself and what this fetish looks like for you?
Yeah, totally. So a little bit about me. I am 31 years old. I work a regular normal job in a call center for a bank. And I enjoy lots of normal things that normal people enjoy. I like video games. That's kind of actually where my Twitter handle comes from, the Wizard Fartbane, because I'm like a Dungeons and Dragons nerd. But I'm one of those weird Dungeons and Dragons people that like I don't have enough friends who are into it to like play with. So I lurk. I'm like a Dungeons and Dragons lurker. So I watch a lot of people on YouTube on other sort of platforms play. And I've always been into like fantasy, like the Dungeons and Dragons of it all, even just like books and movies and video games and stuff. I'm a huge gamer. And I actually, so this was during like COVID, and I feel like the origins of like a lot of my kind of like, I feel like I'm like a superhero or something. Like they all have like an origin story.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't literally think I'm a superhero. That was just a silly comment, but yeah. So during COVID, obviously nobody could hang out. So a lot of my friends, I'm really close with, we have like a little group chat, and one day we like decided like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we all tried to do like a Dungeons and Dragons thing but from home? Like, one of us was going to be a dungeon master, and we all came up with characters, and I thought it'd be really funny to like be like a wizard, like a gassy wizard called Fartbane. And then so we kind of came up with backstories and everything, and my group of friends as well are pretty like, there's mostly guys, and we've known each other like nearly 20 years. So, I mean, if you're not farting at least once in front of somebody you've known for that length of time, I don't know, good on you. But yeah, so that's where that kind of character came from, and then we didn't do the Dungeons and Dragons thing in the end. It just fell through. We just kind of couldn't really commit to it. But then later on, I ended up just using that. It just for a Twitter handle. It just kind of popped into my head. I couldn't really think of anything, so I just used that. And that's kind of, it just kind of stuck. But yeah, I guess you can call me like wizard or fartbit. I think it's a bit of a mouthful for the whole thing. So
Sure.
I guess whatever you feel comfortable.
It kind of has that honorific title. It's like the
It is.
Royal Fartbane. It has a lot of. I know it's wizard, but it has a lot of gravitas
Yes,
in the
it
in the
does.
name.
It does have a lot of gravitas, Rush. Thank you for noticing. It feels very grand. So I feel like to my friends, people I'm closer to, in the fart world, it's Wiz is fine. I mean, I tell people my real name pretty much off the bat whenever I'm speaking to them. But yeah, so but we like to kind of maybe make it like Wiz Fartbane, or Wiz. It's kind of a bit shorter, a bit more casual, because I don't want you to feel intimidated by my status
Sure.
as the wizard.
Absolutely. No, it makes total sense. I appreciate that. familiarity you're allowing me.
Yeah.
Uh, do you know about? Well, one, let me say I really appreciate you sharing all that, because I feel like we've kind of touched and like stepped around the I don't know, the edges of video game culture and all this stuff. And I think some of
Yeah.
the guests probably have been larger fans, but and maybe or
Mhm.
maybe not, but we haven't talked about it at all. So I appreciate you
Oh my gosh, I'm always
sharing some of that.
down
Yeah.
to talk about it 100%.
Do you know when
Um,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Raj. You
No,
might
no,
find as well, you might want to cut out. I'll probably interrupt you because I've been told I'm a terrible interrupter, and I'm
no
sorry
worries.
about that
No problem.
in advance. But I was going to ask you. I know we don't normally like. It's normally just you asking people questions, but are you a gamer? Do you game? And if so, what are you really enjoying right now?
I do game. I guess I've been going back and forth on the some of the older Grand Theft Autos at the moment,
Cool,
just for fun.
cool.
Um, and I like to play a lot of different indie games, so I jump in on that website Lurker. I'm sure there's other websites, but
Oh,
basically developers put up their games on there for streamers to play and kind of promote. And yeah, so sometimes I get accepted to some of
cool.
those and do those games. So one that was semi I guess on theme, I just played recently, was called Sir Whoop Ass. And it's
Okay.
like a hack and slash RPG game, and it had a lot of humor to it as well. I mean, obviously with that name,
Yeah.
but it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun. It was actually pretty well made
I
as
like that.
well. Like the I like to see the fun thing about indie games is they can really go for like a single idea in a really big way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Smaller games can be much more grand in a way that I think large developers don't have they can't risk on jumping into such an idea.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of the bigger market, the AAA stuff. I mean, there's different genres, but they kind of have to try and make the widest kind of net for who's going to buy the product, who's going to pay for this thing. So they kind of have to make it more accessible, and there's maybe certain things they can't do. But yeah, with an indie game, you're totally right. The focus is much more narrow, so they can really just like go hard at it. I think that's one of the things I really like about indie games as well, which I didn't even realize until you said that. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. I agree. But
Absolutely.
yeah, is there a genre in particular that you really? Because with indie games, because they're also diverse, but is there like a particular genre that you lean towards that you like to play, or is there you just kind of a bit of everything?
I mean, I do like to try a bit of everything. I tend to stick away from like platformers or not play too many of those. But I
Mm,
do enjoy more of the probably more simulation games and builder games are probably the
mm,
things I really enjoy. Some RTSs as well are
cool.
pretty
Oh, okay.
fun. I get really frustrated at puzzles. I get like even what was it,
Oh,
the remake of Resident Evil 4. Like I got stuck
yeah.
really early on, just like I
Man.
can't figure out the combination of the cabinet that opens the thing that gets
Yeah,
the marble. I'm like, oh my god, this is like I can't, like this
I
is too
know.
much. But
Like, don't make me think too
it,
hard. I've really like come into a point in my life where I think I used to really enjoy like games that were hard when I was younger. I'd be like, oh, it's so hard. This is fun. Um, but now I'm like, I just want to enjoy the story. So sometimes I'll like secretly turn down the difficulty and just pretend that I didn't do that and just enjoy the story of it all.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, jumping back to the fetish, do you know about how and when it originated for you, or how that
Mm.
what that looked at your beginning?
Yeah, no, totally. I can talk about that.
Sure.
Also, I love the fact that like I mean, we start another podcast about gaming and just talk about that because I could talk about that
Perhaps.
for ages.
I think we could. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah,
We should
yeah,
definitely explore that.
kidding. Yeah, yeah. But the origins of the fetish, I feel like for me, I mean, I think a lot of people, right? It's some people I've spoken to have said that it didn't start really young for them, that they were maybe in their 30s or their late 20s when they like discovered what they were into, which I think is so interesting. Like that, I think because I'm not like that, because for me, I think it started pretty young, like a lot of people. You know, I have I have like four brothers, and I went to like an all male like grammar school. So I've been around men for most of my life. And my family is full of men, and we're a household that we would be very free with farts. We would be farting kind of all the time. There's always somebody farting at some point. Basically. So there was never any kind of like fart shaming or anything like that. Because I know some people can be really, it's like they're told not to, you know, they're like, you can't do it, and that becomes a thing. Like this kind of forbidden taboo thing. But yeah, so definitely I would say like really early puberty, you know, kind of 12, 13 is when I kind of started noticing that it was something I was really interested in. Just specifically farts. And I didn't really know why. I was kind of like, why am I? And it wasn't because I identify as a homosexual male. I'm very much attracted to men or male presenting people. Um, but I would have even with women, if I would kind of be fixated on it, kind of, and I didn't really know why. And then I guess when I got a little bit older, and obviously you're kind of like going through puberty, your body changes and grows and all that, and you're like, oh, I'm actually having like this is like it became like a sexual thing. Then, but interestingly, and we'll probably talk about this later. But I feel like I have like I've talked about it with you. I have like a inflation fetish as well, and that for me has always been quite linked to the fart thing. But I have a really specific memory. I was quite young. I think I was like maybe 8. Um, and I was playing. Oh God, we had this is like we're bringing it back to video games now, but we had I think it was a Dreamcast maybe or a Nintendo. It was I knew that wrestling WWE. I think it was back when it was called WWF, before, even before that, the World Wrestling Federation. Do you remember
Sure.
that?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
Undertaker and all that. Well,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
made this video game. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, no, not at all. No, no, I was
Okay.
just confirming what you said.
Yes, yeah. Are you a wrestling fan, by the way? Just sidebar. You
Uh,
just love the wrestling, or
I had two stages of my life where I did really young, and then again in like high school, when it was like what John Cena and Carlito and I forget who else was out there back day, the Great Khali, you know,
oh my gosh, these are like all classics, like
yeah.
amazing. I was never super into it, but my brothers were, so I kind of had to be like forced into it. Um, but we had this video game, and it was where you could create your own wrestler. And when you're like making the wrestler, they had like a body slider where you could like decide how fat you wanted them to be. And like me and my brothers would like make them really fat, like as a joke. But I remember specifically in one moment where I was like, you could move the slider kind of a fast or slow, and as you moved it, it would like the body would just become really like fat and huge in real time. And I remember like sliding it back and forth and like being like really into that and interested in that, like watching the body expand and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Kind of love this. And I wasn't really sure why. But then this is something that at the time I didn't realize it, but like later on in life, I totally like connected it to that. I was like, wow, that was definitely like an inflation thing, like, just on its own, kind of maybe like the start of that. But yeah, so after because I've been kind of I guess like inflating since honestly probably for like 15 years. I kind of started in private because I obviously got curious about things, and this was like during there was like a golden age of YouTube where you could find like so much like crazy fart porn everywhere, and it was nuts. Or even just people like posting things for fun as well, like being funny, like where the idea wasn't even sexual, it was just people being funny, you know, it wasn't even like them posting it for the sexual gratification. But I remember obviously I was into farts, and I would like deliberately like eat gassy foods and stuff like for dinner to try and make myself fart like during the day, like during school, during class and stuff like that. Just like kind of as a joke. I hadn't quite like connected it to like my sexuality yet. But I remember I stumbled up across this video of these guys, and it's like a really famous. It's like Kenny versus Spenny. I don't know if you do you know them. They were like
Mm,
big in America.
sounds vaguely familiar.
They had this show where they would um every episode was about like one of them had to beat the other at a certain thing. And there was I think I can't remember the other episodes, but there was an episode with like somebody, one of them, whoever farts like the biggest or the loudest, who makes the biggest fart wins. So one of the guys decides to cheat and he like gets like a bike pump and then puts the one end like up his ass and then pumps air up his body, and then he wins the challenge by cheating and making like the biggest farts. And I saw that and I was like, oh fuck, this is I'm into this. And I think that's where the fart thing started, where I was like, okay, so I can inflate myself to fart, and then I would kind of, I would do that, and I'd be like, I actually kind of like, I could felt myself kind of inflating, and I loved the feeling of it. And I was like, oh, okay, there's like something there too, So for me, the two fetishes have always been very linked. I think for me, it's like bacon and eggs, or like peanut butter and chocolate. They're like really interconnected for me, and I kind of feel like it just for me, it just kind of makes sense, like because there's a lot of people who are inflators that are obviously really turned off by farting, so they don't film that part, and you're like, why? Because you're gonna do it anyway. You may as well film it. But I mean, that's their thing. If they're not into like making that content, of course, I totally get it. But yeah. So I'm sorry, that was like a really long ramble. I just gave you like the first kind of 15 to 20 years of my life.
No, that was great. That was really great. One thing that struck me, and t- uh, please share with me what you know. Like, is there any like kind of uh, health concern or safety issue with inflating?
Oh yeah,
Like I, it seemed like there would be
yeah.
some kind of like areas
Mhm.
to be careful of, or what are some precautions, I guess, you go into in terms of inflating, or see other people.
Yeah, no, totally. Because I think the most important thing is to be really, really safe, because as hot as I find it, or as hot as other people find it, whatever you're into, like it's really not worth dying over. Like it's not worth getting sent to the hospital for a fetish, because this you can literally die if um don't do it right. I guess for me, I kind of started really, really small and kind of experimenting, and because every body is different, your literal body is different. So um I think the first thing I would say is like start super slow, and don't be using something crazy like like a hydraulic press, or really like something that people use to inflate tires, or something which has like a really high, it's called PSI, it's like pounds per square inch. It's like how much air is going to be moving out of that nozzle at any moment in time. So something really small. I even started with like, I just had like a tube where I would put like one end of the tube up my ass and then the other in my mouth. And also, guys, if you're going to do that, really important that you label which tube goes where, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're putting the wrong end in the wrong end. But yes, that's kind of how I started with that. So you can kind of control how much air that you're putting in your body with your own mouth. It's like kind of like you're blowing up a balloon. When you have to force this kind of pressure difference. You have to kind of, fill your cheeks up with air and like force it out really forcefully. So that was one way, but starting really small, taking your time. The main thing is that I've learned is like give your body time to settle, because you're literally stretching your body with air. So um, your body's going to cramp. It's going to be uncomfortable. And the minute anything hurts, that's like when you should stop, really, because you need to give your body time to let the air move around, distribute evenly into other kind of like body cavities that you have, and then you can keep going, if you want to. But yeah, it's really like listening to your body is so important. It's really key. And anyone that's, because I remember once, this was a little while ago, but I can't remember, I was on some kind of social media. It wasn't Twitter, because I'm quite new to the Twitter thing. I've only been on, like, really active on Twitter for a couple of years, but I think it was maybe Reddit I was on, and there's a subreddit called like the belly expansion. I think they're called belly expansion. And so they would have a mixture of inflation content, some real life stuff, and then a lot of it was animated and art and fantasy, sort of that thing. And I think they ended up having a rule where they were like, out of safety, they were banning any real live inflation stuff. They said, look, if you want to do that, you do it somewhere else because it's dangerous. And I remember there being, I can't, this was years ago, but I remember there being quite like a real commotion on that subreddit. Some people were very against it. They were like, this is what we want to do. Why can't you let us do it over here? And then other people were like, get the fuck out because you're literally promoting very unsafe, potentially fatal, and all I can really say is, like a lot of things, if you do it a certain way or do it the wrong way, you can end up with really serious consequences. But if you're really careful, take your time, because I was initially just doing it so I could fart loads. I wasn't even doing it so I could like literally inflate my body and watch my like belly, get bigger. So I've been doing it for years, and I feel like I've been doing it very carefully. I've never had an issue. And there's been times where I have like seriously really pushed the limits of, especially like when I started making content as well, like pushing the limits quite hard, my own personal limits. But yeah, I've never had any injuries at all, never had any negative consequences. Fingers crossed, touch wood. I say that, and then maybe like next week, they'll be like, I'll just explode or something, and there'll be like an article like, 31-year-old guy explodes, nobody knows why. Who
Jeez,
knows?
yeah. I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't
No, but that's
happen.
definitely, we could talk about that a bit more, but I the whole like inflating till you die thing is not personally not one of my fantasies. It's not really something that I vibe with. I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, but there is like a portion of the inflation community that are very into like popping
Sure.
and like sort of sometimes in real graphic detail about people like bursting at the seams and exploding with viscera flying everywhere and guts and stuff.
That's been in a few
Um,
movies, and it's pretty like
yeah,
as dark as I really like my fantasy stuff, when I see anything like that or any kind of like torment scene in a movie, I get really
yeah,
uncomfortable because it's just like,
mm,
this is not
I know.
this is
Yeah.
weird. But actually that ties into what I was going to ask you next. You gave me so much information. I appreciate the plethora of information you gave us
Oh yeah.
on your origins, and it included some of this aspect, but what I'm curious about is what kind of themes do you gravitate towards? Like, are you into the domination side? Are you
Mhm,
into more
mhm,
just the casual side? And any other things that you think color
yeah.
your fetish experience?
Yeah. Is this like in my content or in like my sex life or like
Um,
both or what?
I
What's
guess
the?
I guess personally, I think I ask you a little later. I have a question again about what kind of
Yeah.
content you enjoy making most. So
Mm,
yeah, on a personal
yeah.
level,
On a personal
what do you
level,
gravitate
cool.
towards?
So like what I think there's a lot of stuff that I'm still kind of figuring out because while I, myself have been inflating kind of personally, it's been a part of my sexuality, I think, for a long time. It's not something that I've integrated into my sex life until very recently, the last couple of years. I kind of started off in my mid to late 20s, and it was very I because when I would be hooking up with people or in relationships or just having sex in general, it was very vanilla. It was just like I identify as like I'm a bottom person, so I guess in terms of like actual literal intercourse, I felt it was quite passive. It would be something that was kind of done to me, obviously something that I enjoyed and consensually agreed to and all the rest. But it was always something I was like, right, so Top's coming in and I'm gonna be there to kind of make him feel good. And, we're gonna do, anal penetrative sex and all the other stuff too. And we'd have a good time. But yeah, in terms of like the fart inflation stuff, I kind of kept that at like arm's distance. So it would only be through messages, DMs, kind of digital sort of talking to people, and I would find people with similar interests kind of on Kick Messenger. That was like a big one for me for a while. um and and Reddit as well would be another one, but they're kind of the communities on there aren't really that great, to be honest. They're quite dull. But yeah, so when I started kind of just before, I think just before COVID actually is when I kind of started integrating kind of farts and inflation into my like actual sex life. Um, and it's funny because a lot of because the first couple of guys I tried it with, they were really into like face sitting and being dominated, and I at the time was like, oh, I don't know if that's me. Like I don't really know if I can. I'm used to being very like I said, quite passive, things. But then whenever I was like, right, okay, I'll try it out. We'll just say, because you have to try things in life, right? And you sort of try it out, and if it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it kind of was like a real like a light bulb moment for me, where I was like, wow, okay, I can be much more active in the sex that we're having and being more in control, which I really, really enjoy. And that's when I started. Obviously, I was crushing a lot of just me with my full body weight kind of on them, and kind of basically until they couldn't really handle it. And I think I'm also just really super conscious of that. I really don't want to kill anybody because I know you can take it really far sometimes. Because I'm quite a big guy. I've always been quite heavy, um, so I have to be really and I'm 6'2", and I have like quite a big frame. So I'm already just literally a bigger person, even if I wasn't overweight or plus sized. So I have to be, and the guys that tend to like me as well are generally like shorter than me, and they're quite slim and slight, which I have no problem with. I feel like I'm into a really broad spectrum of body types. So I have to just be extra careful. But there's not been any accidents yet. No one has cracked a rib or anything. Although one guy did say he felt like he was hit by a truck the next day, but in a good way. And I'm quoting him directly. um, yeah, so it's right now where I am at now with the farts and inflation. A lot of guys, some of them would be into farts, maybe not inflation, but they understand that like my body can only do so much. And most guys that I'm hooking up with that are into farts, if they want me to bring farts into the bedroom, they're okay with me bringing an air pump to pump myself up. And a lot of them actually are kind of surprised by how into the inflation part that they are. They're kind of like, oh, I didn't realize, but it's actually really hot. Like they're into it. I think one guy said it was about like he loved seeing like the transformational part of it, like just seeing like my body literally change size. And I can get quite big. I've been doing it for a long time, so my muscles are they can stretch quite a bit, and my skin. So um him knowing that it was all air and it was going to be farts and it was going to come out as farts. I think he said if it was just food or something, he wouldn't be as into it, but because he knew that it was going to result in a lot of flatulence. It just made it hotter for him. So obviously, a lot of face sitting, a lot of I like to kind of uh, sort of sit the way I sit. Kind of, it's hard to describe, but it's not like a 69 kind of right where you're kind of your head's at their genitals are near your head kind of, but instead of me sort of my head at their genitals, I'm sitting upright, kind of. So I'm kind of straddling them, really. So I guess some people call it is it the reverse cowgirl or something? I'm not sure. I'm probably I'm losing you here, but yeah. So there's a lot of that as well. A lot of face sitting. Sometimes I meet up with people and we have no penetrative sex at all. It's just like face sitting, crushing, farts, and I find that deeply fulfilling as well. I guess some people just aren't into penetration, and I'm honestly used to be a total bottom, but now I'm maybe more of a side where I'm getting a little bit older. I'm like, anal isn't everything. It's fun sometimes, and I get cravings sometimes for it, but like, it's not something that I need all the time to be satisfied sexually. So that's where I'm at, kind of with the whole in my personal life thing. I am currently single. I have had a few kind of hookups that weren't serious relationships where I've like brought farts and sort of inflation into it. As of yet, I've not really brought that into a serious relationship. I think that's like the next thing for me. But I feel like pretty good about it. Like I don't really feel like it's something. I don't think I would be hiding this from somebody I really cared about. I think they would have to just understand it. I would probably tell them pretty early on to kind of make sure that's something that they can deal with.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we're that's the next thing, hopefully.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, and you mentioned in messages to me about the uh the fart fetish incorporated into your sex life helped you explore that dominant side. And I think you just
Yeah.
covered a lot of the, what happened, but do you have any idea of like how or why that came about, or how that process what that process changed and looked like for you inside of
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, totally. So I think for me, like I mentioned before, like I was having a lot of vanilla sex in my 20s, and it was satisfying. Um, but I didn't always feel like that good about my body. And I think in the gay world, there's a lot of um I don't know, like self-loathing, and there's a lot of like loathing that's projected to other people, especially kind of like people with my body type. So I guess I wasn't always feeling really like confident about myself. But bringing in the inflation, the fart thing, I think what really changed there was like the type of people that I'd be hooking up with. Um, because if you're meeting up with somebody and that's on the table, like in pumping air up your ass and farting for like 3 hours, the person's gonna have to be really into it to want to do that. And so I think that's one of the main things that changed for me was I was kind of I once I started bringing this into my sex life, I was choose more selective and choosing the right kind of people, I think, better. That I would more sexually compatible with or have more sexual compatibility. And I think, and just as a result of that, like my interactions with the people that I was hooking up with were a lot more positive, a lot more pleasant. A lot of people kind of really validating me and being like, oh, actually, no, like because I think a lot of people do this, but if you've had a lot of experiences where you're not feeling that great about yourself, it tends to come up in conversation slightly where you might make like self-deprecating jokes, or you might kind of make comments, or I used to do this thing where I felt like I had to really prepare people and be like, look, I am a big plus size person, this is my body, this is what I look like. Are you okay with that? Because some people would kind of be like, oh, like I didn't think you were this big, or in your pictures you didn't look as big. And so I try to be really super transparent because I've had a lot of experiences where people were like disappointed or something, and I think that kind of like knocked my confidence a bit. But yeah, so a lot of the people, particularly the guys that are into like being face sat and crushed, and like they're into inflation and stuff, they're more attracted to bigger bodied people anyway. So I think that's really like the key of it. Like the people that I was doing these things with were a lot more like accepting of me and into me. And I find people who are into kinks and have more kinks that they enjoy are generally more kind of open and accepting. Like that's generally been quite a positive experience for me. Whereas vanilla guys, as I call them, a lot, I suppose, vanilla is like anyone that's not claims to not have a kink, or maybe they're just not upfront about their kinks, but they're just kind of like into what's normal, air quote. Those are the types of people that tend to be a little bit more judgmental, maybe a little bit more. I've had more negative interactions with them, in all honesty, than I have with anyone who's like in the kink world.
For sure. For sure. And then like your first time incorporating like far fetish into your bedroom play, was that just like contacting someone who was into that and then exploring that, or how did that go about?
Well, so there was a period where I was kind of reaching out to people online, kind of finding like-minded people that were into farting, and that's actually kind of when I first started making like content, I guess. But it wasn't like I wasn't selling it or posting it anywhere. It was just privately being shared with these people. So that's kind of when I first started off, like figuring out, like, oh, okay, so what looks good? How do I make myself look good in this video? Like, what kind of video am I wanting to send to this person who's into farts and what have you? And I think we just, the first guy, super sweet guy, we were just talking and we ended up sort of sharing like, oh, I live here, and he goes, oh, I live there, I'm going to be in your city, in the next couple of weeks, so, like, when I come over, would you want to meet up with me? And I sort of said, yeah, like, it would be cool. So that was kind of, and it was nice to do it with somebody that I felt quite safe with, because we'd had like nice chats, and we were able to keep talking more until like the deadline or when they were coming. So yeah, so that's kind of where it started, and it was like a game changer for sure. I think that's what I would say to anybody that's really kind of worried about like bringing their kink or their fetish into like their real sexual life. If that's something that they really want, that's something that they're really craving. There's ways to kind of go about it to like make sure that you're safe and that you're not gonna, that the other person's not gonna reject you. And personally, for me, I did a lot of kind of like emotionless, anonymous hookups in my 20s, kind of before the fart inflation thing being brought into my sort of sex life. I think the way I go about it now is it's not really totally anonymous. I just like to get to know people and have like a good rapport, and maybe just know a little bit about them before, we do stuff like that together. So that's kind of, so I'm usually always pretty comfortable sharing that with them and doing that stuff. So that's what I would say. Anybody that's like thinking about it, like, oh, I don't know if it's worth the hassle, or they may be afraid. I would say like you got to do it, because it's, I don't know, unless they don't want to. But I think wanting to have something like that in your sex life and not being able to is like torture.
Yeah.
So I would definitely encourage anybody to just try and be brave and sort of, trust yourself and just give it a go. And if it's a disaster, it's a disaster. It's just a funny story you can laugh about later. Don't get murdered.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely. It's very true. But I think also like it speaks to like, I think first, accepting ourselves, and then I think once we have really achieved that, we're gonna become less tolerant in a positive way of people who are
Yeah.
not accepting of us. I think it'll become clear when we accept ourselves. I think it becomes clearer and clearer to us
Yeah.
the people that do actually accept us, or the people we may have appeased or changed ourselves, maybe in small
Yeah.
ways, maybe in big ways, to make them feel comfortable because we felt or knew we couldn't be comfortable with them. So I think, yeah, we start with that self-acceptance piece,
Yeah.
and then we can branch out and
Yeah.
find the people that actually, or find the authenticity within people. Which kind of brings me to, do you seem pretty public about the fetish in terms of people, like, within the groups, the people you connect with.
Yeah.
But what would you say? Would you say you're pretty public or private about the fetish, if people talk about sexuality?
I would say pretty public to a degree. I mean, I have my voice and my face in a lot of my videos. My close friends and family know that I make fart content online. They know that I enjoy it and enjoy that, there's just the process of it, and it's something that we laugh about because I mean, to laugh at it, it's not to like make fun. It's not to make fun of anybody or be like, ha ha ha, you're so pathetic that you do this. It's more just, this is kind of a sidebar. There's people that kind of make content like that. And again, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. If you love it, you love it. And that's awesome for you. But I'm really kind of not a fan of the stuff that's like very um kind of deprecating and like, oh, you just pathetic little piss worm, you little fucking, can I say that on this podcast? I just said the
Yeah,
word
yeah.
piss worm. Can I do
No, yeah,
that?
absolutely. I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, it's like the alpha stuff, right? It's the alpha stuff that's really kind of like, you're just a piece of shit, and then they just rip the world's tiniest fart, and it's all that stuff. It's just not really my bag. But yeah, so I think you can laugh about it in a really healthful way and be like, this funny that this is something that I do for money and sometimes for pleasure. Well, it's always for pleasure, but sometimes there's no money involved. It's just me doing it for fun. Um, so like that's hilarious. like I'm 31 years old and I'm like living my life, and I'll just be doing normal things, and then I'll go into the bathroom and record a few farts for somebody and then send it to them. Like that's really funny to me. So and I just think farts are kind of funny in general. There is like a funny. I think I've always found them quite funny. They're not just like sexual to me. So yeah, that's what I would say. I'm not sure where. I think I've totally went off like your original question, I think.
No, but not at
But
all.
yeah,
No,
so
it
High
makes
Tide Republic. I'm
absolutely.
back.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
sorry.
no, it's great though. I appreciate. Well, and the thing I picked up on too that I appreciate you do saying is you said your friends and family know, which I think is kind of rare for a lot of
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
And not in a bad way. I think you're saying it exactly right. Is that acknowledging the perhaps ridiculousness, the humor of it, of
yeah.
having a fart fetish in general, farts in general. Yeah, I think it's when we embrace that and when we realize that it doesn't really it doesn't make us weird or freaks or anything else. It just makes us we have an interest that's different, that I'm sure other people have other different other weird. I mean, some people like stamp collecting, and that's like, I'm not that, again, it's not nothing against it, but it's an interesting hobby for sure, not one of mine, but I sit in front of a computer for 20 hours a day. So like, it's not like I like people would be like, that's weird, or why you do that. And I'm like, well, I like it.
Exactly. And I just think, honestly, I roll my eyes so hard anytime because sometimes, I have conversations. I recently, for example, I was on a night out with a couple of friends, and we were having a few drinks, and there was some new people that I just met, and we were just talking about kink and fetish and just stuff like that. We were actually talking about how like some fetishes are really just really normalized at the moment. Like I think in particular, I think feet and piss are water sports. I think those are both really like, if I don't think anybody really bats an eyelid when someone's like, "Hey, I'm into these things." Everyone's like, "Cool, that's fine." And we were talking about that, and I did mention on the night out, I was like, "Yeah, look, I make content online. I talk to guys a lot, well, and sometimes girls too, who are into these things, and it's really not that big a deal." I even said like, I make fart content. I sell my farts to people, and we all just have a good laugh about it. So it just and it's crazy to me because in that moment it felt really really normal, but I think if like 10 years ago, like 21-year-old me, if you told that to him, he would be like, "What the fuck?" There's no way that like he would have done that. So it's just funny how your perspective can really shift. I will say, my parents don't actually know. They're like the only people in my life that don't actually know, because I'm not ready to have that awkward conversation with my parents
Sure.
about like shaking my cakes on the internet and like farting for money or for fun.
Sure.
But I mean, my siblings and my dad, they have kinks and things that they're into, and I just think that's like part of my like the genetics of my family. We all just have like little kinks and little things that are, and maybe that's just what everyone's like. I don't really know, but yeah. So it's kind of like, who are they to judge me? It's kind of the place that I'm coming from. Why do we judge each other? And not before I sound too preachy, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I always tell people, if they have questions and they're curious, that like being into farts, it's not normal, but I always say it's perfectly natural. Um, because I think kinks are a really natural thing, and it's more, when I say natural, I do really feel a lot of it is about like your biological makeup, like your genetics, and then also the experiences you have in life. There's a bit of nurture as well. But I mean, being into farts is like, it's something, it's a natural thing that your body does. It's not normal to be attracted to them, and it's frankly hilarious sometimes when I really think about it. But it's like it's almost innocent. I feel like a wholesome, innocent kind of. Well, that's where I come from. But anyway, it's hard to describe. It's like it's so innocuous and harmless. It's just like air coming out of your ass, and it's gone in a moment. It leaves, and well, unless it's really really smelly, but it's there and it's gone, and it's very like temporary. just a fart in general. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but I always, anyone that's like really beating themselves up about it as well. Like I've talked to a few people that are super like ashamed about it. I'm like, my dude, it's just natural, It's just, that's part of who you are. It's part of your body, part of your mind. Like, don't fight it, just embrace it. Don't hurt yourself over it. It's not worth that. It's not worth torturing yourself over. It's just a part of who you are, and you may as well just enjoy it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you said many things, but two things that I wanted to make a point on as well is like having a friendly laugh with people about making fart content. I thought was really great because I think it ties into something you said earlier about when you started to like accept yourself and when you
Yeah.
started to not feel as much shame or not feel like you had to justify or explain yourself to
Yeah.
hookups or partners you were
Yeah.
gonna be seeing. And I think that really speaks to maybe the self-acceptance and our tone that we bring to things. Like if we come into things like really embarrassed and really like timid and like I don't know how to tell you this. It's kind of funny, but it's like I'm a little ashamed of it
Yeah.
too. It's like if you do all this equivocating before you tell someone, rather than just being confident about who you are, it's like, hey, I make fart content. I do this, I do that. I make fart captions. I write
Yeah.
stories. If
Yeah.
you're just relaying it like you're not looking for their judgment. If they're judging you, then you're going to be like, hey, I don't need you. That's fine. Get you don't need to be around. We don't need to be around each other. But I think when you bring it to people with like, hey, this is what I do, it's like, that's kind of silly. It's like, yeah, it is kind of silly, but people
Yeah.
like it. People enjoy it. I enjoy it too. It's the confidence you have in yourself. Again, that self-acceptance that
Yeah.
really, I think, can change people's perception or perspective of what you're saying. And that was the second
Totally.
thing. Oh, what were you gonna say?
No, I was totally in agreement with you. And what I would say is I recognize that not everybody is at that place yet. It took
Sure.
me a long time to get here. It took me like, I mean, really like 20 years of like actively accepting like this is what I like. And I think there's like a little bit of like cultural renaissance happening now too, where people are maybe a bit more open to it. I don't know, but I appreciate and understand if some people are like, look, I can't do that. If they have to preface it with that kind of like equivocating, like you say, there's nothing wrong with that. You do you, whatever it takes for you to get where you want to be. That's really all I was trying to say. And Raj, I feel sorry for you in the edit because I feel like I talk so much. I'm quite a verbose person, so this might end up being like a ridiculously long episode.
Not at all. No, we're perfectly fine. We're perfectly fine. Well, that brings me to my other point I was going to bring up, which you mentioned, foot fetish, which is something we kind of talked about here, and pee fetish being kind
Yeah.
of more normalized. And I honestly think this could be my bias for media, but I think it honestly comes from the like TV show and movie exposure. Like we just had
Yeah.
at the beginning of Billions. I didn't watch the whole series, but the first episode, the opening is Paul Giamatti getting pissed on.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
have the girl's ass eating scene that was like
yeah.
took the internet kind of like by storm for a little bit. And then I mean
Yeah.
the feet thing, I mean Tarantino, but not even just Tarantino. I'm sure I've seen feet in other movies as well, as a
Yeah.
focus. But the point is like I think the sheer exposure to these things, I think
Yeah.
people one are either like had this latent feeling in their background and they are triggered it in their later life, like, oh my god, I actually like watching Paul Giamatti get pissed on, like I might
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
as well. um
What's not to like?
yeah, well, right. Right.
Right?
Absolutely. So I think it's
Yeah.
the thing. I think media exposure really helps people because if you didn't go to Pornhub or RedTube and look for somebody getting pissed on, you never saw it, but you had that gene or that inkling inside you, it might have taken seeing it on Billions, an HBO show,
Maybe.
to
Yeah.
actually realize it, to actually
Yeah.
have it come to your consciousness. So I think that's very possible that normalization comes very much through what comes in through our
I
media.
think so. No, you're totally right. And we were talking about ass eating as well as what you just mentioned it there. And I feel like that is something that's definitely become way more like everybody eats ass now, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that means that people weren't doing it and now they are, or if maybe people are only now just like not caring about how honest they are about it.
Sure.
But I feel like that's going to be like the fart gateway. I really do feel like because everybody's cool with eating ass now, so the next thing will probably be like, what's wrong with like you're eating ass and then a little fart comes out? You know what I mean? Like, oh, you accidentally pushed a little bit of air up there, and it's going to come out. You know, so I feel like that's the next. We're at like this renaissance right now, and we're kind of that's going to be the next thing. You know, we're going to smash the glass ceiling, Raj.
I hope.
Um,
I hope so.
yeah, yeah, I definitely feel like that's it's the media coverage, 100%. It's people seeing stuff like that. With farts in media, it's always a comedy thing. It's always like a comedy gag, you know. But some of the most iconic fart stuff in movies and TV is still like guaranteed somebody is jerking off to that right now, you know, like Blazing Saddles, you know, where they're all around the campfire
Right.
eating beans, or even like Adam Sandler's Click, you know, where he's like freezes time and then farts in his boss's face.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like very dominating. That's a more like more has a more kind of sexual tone to it, at least in my opinion. But
Yeah.
yeah, totally. I think it's all about the media, and there will I feel like there will be a day when it's like, oh, he's into farts, like whatever, you know. At least it's not shit, you know. That's I think that's how
Right.
some people feel about it,
Yeah,
you
unfortunately.
know.
Unfortunately, that is the yeah, at least it's not this. But yes, I
Yeah,
do agree that that will most
yeah.
likely be the mainstream perception.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, we're the enlightened ones here, Raj. We can, you know, we're just waiting. The world's gonna catch up to where we're at, you know, one day.
I hope so. Well, and you talked about getting into making content, but I don't think you shared what drew you to it. Why did you start making content?
Oh,
What made
yeah,
you want to explore that
yeah.
option?
So, totally. That's actually a really good question. I started because when I say making content, I suppose now I am mostly referencing the stuff that I kind of post and advertise and sell. But before I even started doing Twitter properly, I was obviously, like I mentioned, I was kind of speaking to people online, the occasional dating, hookup, whatever. But it was quite like early on at that point. But so I was filming a lot of videos kind of to send to people, you know, in a sexual way, trading videos. They would send me stuff, I would send them stuff. I would be, you know, speaking to a lot of people who don't actually like film themselves farting. So we've talked about it before. Our friend of the pod, Dill Jam, Stinky DJ,
Sure.
has mentioned it about there's like farters and sniffers, and there's people who make things and people who just take things and whatnot. But um, so I was doing a lot of that. And then COVID happened. So suddenly no one's allowed to kind of hang out. No one's allowed to hook up, you know, and I was living with my family who were vulnerable. So I couldn't really take the risk of, you know, breaking the COVID kind of guidelines. And so I had to stay isolated with everybody else. Um, so then I was kind of on the edge of this, like incorporating this thing into my sex life, and I tried it a few times, and it was really good. And I was talking to people online, and having a lot of fun. And then COVID happened. I'm like, crap. So I actually can't meet up with people anymore. I can't do that. So I think after a few months, I stopped kind of talking to people online sexually. I think because I was like, I'm not going to be able to meet up with them because it's COVID. So I was like, I'd rather just not do that, you know, at all. But I kind of got to a point where I think I just kind of had like a need. I was like, oh, I just really want to, you know, I was really missing it. I think it was well into the first lockdown, and also I just finished my university degree, and the place I was working, just kind of the job kind of we all got sent home, you know. So then I was on really low pay. I was on low money. So there was like a motivation, a financial motivation as well, to actually make and sell content. Um, but I wasn't sure if because I didn't want to just start like come out of nowhere and be like, "Hey guys, buy my stuff," because I just felt like that's not really going to work. So I started gathering a lot of the clips that I had filmed and recorded and sent to people, and I thought, this is a thing as well. I've really had to learn quite a lot about how to market myself and kind of how that works. Like, you've got a brand, you've got like a unique selling point, you've got a thing that people come to you to buy. Um, I had to really spend a lot of time to work out. So what is that thing? Like, what's that thing that I'm? Why would anybody buy my stuff if um there's so much free content out there? And as someone who's been like lurking and consuming content and fart porn for years, you kind of know like there's a lot of free stuff and there's a lot of really high quality stuff as well.
Hmm.
So I kind of went into the start of it like, so I started sort of cutting together a lot of the videos that I had into kind of larger compilations of maybe like 4 or 5 minutes each. And I was like, look, if I'm gonna do this, I want people to really get like a good sense of the kind of content that they would be buying from me if they wanted to buy it, you know. So I would I was posting a lot of things for free when I started out on Twitter, mostly just to like build up like an initial like, is this even something that people are actually interested in? Do they even really want like my stuff? Because I mean I obviously were speaking to people that I was hooking up with who were into that, and they were like, yeah, your farts are hot, blah blah blah. But I was like, they kind of want to fuck me, so like they're biased. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Sure.
It's not like a it's not
Yeah.
like a what is that word? It's an impartial opinion. Is I think that's the word. So
Sure.
that's kind of where I started with that. And there was like a financial motivation in my mind, but it wasn't something that I was like, this is definitely going to happen. I'm definitely going to be able to sell stuff. I think I just came into it with like, this is just hot stuff that I would want to see. Um, and so it was mostly just for fun and like getting my kind of stuff out there so people could see it and kind of know, like, this is the kind of things that I do. I hope you enjoy it, hope you like it. So I did that for a good long time actually before I even decided to make the decision to like maybe try and sell. You know, so yeah. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer.
Not at all. No, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate the history of it because it really gives us a sense
Yeah,
of who you are and some of your motivations for doing things, which I really appreciate. I really enjoy hearing about the backstory of people.
I know,
Uh
and I feel
yeah.
like I'm still really new. I mean, I've only been doing it for a couple of years, and I still feel like I'm really new in the fart content space. There's like so many people that have been doing it way longer than me and are just way more successful. I feel like I'm kind of making it up as I go. But I've had to kind of like create these kind of rules for myself, kind of when starting out, and how I started out is very different to how I kind of operate and conduct myself now. So there's things that I've had to really kind of like reinforce in my mind to kind of make sure that I'm not kind of getting sucked in too much. Because it is at the end of the day, I get sometimes some people pay me, but it really is just something I do because I love it and it's fun. So my thing is like, it's really important to me that my stuff's really high quality and there's a lot of it. I want people to feel like they're getting like, the bang for their buck. You know what I mean? Because anyone that chooses to spend their hard-earned money on my stuff is like, you're going to get a lot of farts per minute. Basically, that's like my goal.
Sure. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. Well, that gives us a kind of taste, but what kind of content more specifically do you feel you
Mm.
make?
So I guess my thing is like, first of all, because I hear about this a lot, I do kind of do a lot of research, a lot of scientific research, where I'm like looking at fart content and I'm really trying to, because that's another thing that's changed. Before I was a content creator, I would just be consuming it in like purely sexual gratification, like, oh, this is hot, love this.
Yeah.
But now I'm also like looking at it with like almost like a business mind where I'm like, okay, so what are they doing? Is that something new? Is that something different? Is that something that I've done? Is that even something that I can do? Like, for example, the farting wolf. You had him recently on the pod.
Hmm.
And anyone who listens to this podcast probably knows who he is. But there's specific things that only he can do. Like he does this thing where he like inhales like a vape from his ass and then just farts it back out. And he's really good at like inhaling air, which isn't, it's not something that I can do. So you kind of have to look. There's some things that you like. I'm not able to do, and I can't do that. But I feel like I'm kind of representing a lot of the kind of plus size, like chubby, fat, like overweight, gassy guys. Because I feel like there definitely are other content creators like me who are plus size and do that. They don't always show their face. They don't always like speak on camera. So I think my thing is like being really transparent. You know, I'm like my face is there. I'm speaking, trying to kind of be as authentic, you know, as I can. Like in when how authentic can you be when you're being filmed or when you're recording yourself? But so that's kind of what I try to do, and I try and like to show a lot of my body at a lot of different angles. You know, even some angles that aren't necessarily flattering. But it's kind of one of those things. Like I feel like I'm kind of representing the plus sized kind of farters out there, you know, that maybe are a bit shy. There's a lot of us that are quite maybe shy and don't want to sort of do as much on camera, show as much. So I think that's like one of the things that maybe I might be known for. I know a lot of my customers have told me that they're like, because I kind of do like a little bit of on the spot research. I'm like, hey, like, where did you find me? Like, what do you like about my stuff? Is there anything in particular that you think I could be doing? So I'm always really open to feedback. I think that's like that kind of part of the customer content creator relationship is really important to me. And a lot of them are like, there's just people just aren't like looking like you doing what you're doing. There's just not that many people doing that, you know. Not to invalidate the wonderful people that are like me are doing it. Like there's so many amazing like your plus size content creators, not just farts, but like doing all sorts of stuff. I think within the fart space, there's really not that many. So I think that's kind of that's my unique selling point, or so I'm told, you know, from the people that I speak to, you know. But who knows? They could just be telling me what I want to hear. I don't know.
I mean, that's something we all have to struggle with when we're in the creative field. It's like, is this genuine, or is this, is this, yeah, people telling me what I want to hear. But I think we just have to, take it as authentic, and until we know otherwise, just accept it that way. Because I think we can kill ourselves like getting all like bogged down into like people
Yeah,
like, oh,
I know, right?
do they
Who do you
actually
trust?
like me? Is this like,
Yeah.
you
Do
know
they like me? Do they really like me? Like
right.
Sally Field accepting the Oscar in like
Yeah,
19. Yeah, they like me. They really like me. Yeah, you just kind of have to roll with it, you know? But thankfully, I've had mostly like very, very positive interactions with almost everybody. You know, it's been very positive. There's been very few within the fart kink community that have been negative towards me. So I just feel like I'm just feel very lucky, you know, like the people that I speak to, not even the people who buy my stuff, but just like the people I've been interacting with are just all really great. So it's like sunshine and rainbows all around.
that's great. And it seems like I do feel like the people that are truly in the community tend to be some really great people. I haven't thankfully run into many bad people. And if they were, I feel like they're more trolls outside of the community, or just like people coming in just for a larf rather than people who are actually
Yeah, for sure.
unpleasant within the community. I haven't had the misfortune of meeting anyone like that, thankfully. So
Yeah.
so I feel
Totally.
good about that. And I feel good about our community in that way.
Yeah, me too, Raj. I feel very hopeful about the state of the community as it is. We've got work to do, but I think there's some really good bones. There's some really good people. You know, so it makes me feel hopeful.
For sure. One thing that stuck with me that maybe I'm stuck on it for the wrong reason, but when you said you sometimes film unflattering angles, that makes me think like sometimes you're often in it to like create something more creative and something that's more like empowered to the piece rather than your own like sense of ego or sense of like self. Is that a case? Like do you find yourself to be like a creative or like have an artistic vision in terms of the content you're creating?
Yeah, I would say I do. I definitely feel really like passionate about the content. And listen, you could, if you really boil it down, what is it? Like just me like pumping air up my ass and farting on a camera for, like 10 minutes, or sometimes it's me like I've eaten something really gassy, or I've just swallowed burps and the farts are happening. But I do really feel like I make a real effort to create and make something that I'm proud of, that I love. And look, it's not the Sistine Chapel, or Citizen Kane. It's not like this really, groundbreaking art that I'm making, but I try to really like come up with variety, and because there's people that kind of just do the same things over and over and over, and it is hot, but it gets a little bit boring. So I try and come up with scenarios, not necessarily role play, but like for example, there's a few different types of videos that I actually make. Some videos are really explicit, and it's like me naked, showing a lot of my body, farting, being really verbal. And then there's other things that I make which are more like I'm fully clothed, and it's just like me lounging, playing video games or something, and it's really relaxed. And I like to kind of mix up the vibe sometimes. And I think that's something that because I don't have that many videos. I've been making content for a couple, maybe like nearly 2 years now, which is kind of crazy. But I only ever make something when I want to, when I'm in the mood to do it. I don't, if I'm ever thinking, oh God, like I have to make a video, like I just don't do it, because it's never, I've done that a couple of times in the videos. I'm just never happy with it. It's never good. There's something maybe just lacking or something wrong with it. So, and I don't even like, I wouldn't even like to sell it. I feel like it's important to me. If I'm selling something, I have to really, really care about it, really love it. So I don't have that many videos for the amount of time that I've been making content. And it's for that reason, I kind of have a really strict rule with myself that like, if I'm not feeling the vibe, I'm not going to just do it for the sake of it. So that's, sometimes it kind of doesn't get me in trouble, but some people are like, where's your videos? Like give us more videos. I'm like, guys, I'm just not really, I just don't have any more right now. Um, so yeah, it's I definitely feel like I'm a creative person when it comes to it, and I'm always trying new things, trying new angles. I've even got like some stuff where I'm like outside and like kind of public play, like in my back garden, but there's other people around me, like in other gardens, which I've filmed. um, and yeah, so I try like to mix it up and give variety. I think that's really important to me. And I think people sense that. I think like we were talking about it earlier, like when somebody is having fun with the thing that they're making, or they enjoy it, or they care about it, like you can kind of tell. And I think that's like one of the reasons why I get quite a lot of engagement, I feel like, on my stuff. For like the small following that I have, um, which at the moment I think it's like 2,200 and something followers, which like blows my mind. You think about how many people that is, like that's crazy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and you said something that is really kind of the two sides of the adult content coin, is like there's something to be said about the simplicity of like setting up a camera, doing the same angle, doing one angle, all this stuff. And I don't enjoy that in the content I watch, but I don't say that to like diminish the hard work, or even if someone's like, oh, it's not hard work, it's like, well, the reason people make content that quickly is because the need is insatiable, or the want, I guess would be
Yeah.
a better word.
Yeah.
Is the desire for it is insatiable, that people want to consume a new video every day. And if that's your business too, it makes sense. Like I there's a couple of clips for sale channels I follow that release content every day. And it's pretty simplistic because they are doing it every day. But you appreciate the hustle, and I'm sure there are fans who appreciate the constant stream of content.
Oh yeah.
But the other side of it,
100%.
yeah, but the other side of it, I'd say, um, is the side I kind of want to be on. The side why I'm kind of getting more into the idea of trying to make content again, if I can find a model or a partner or what have you,
Yeah.
is the more artistic exploration of like
Mm.
I have a filmmaking background, so I like to like maybe do it with a free camera, do it with something have a model, a sub, and just a cameraman working separately, so it's a little more flowy. Or just, even if it's not that, just change up the angle all the time. When I was making content with my ex, part of it is to change an angle to make a cut to seem more seamless, but it's also to make it more visually interesting. It's like, oh, you have this angle that's really, you got a close up, but you also got this, so you get a little more reaction. I really enjoy the variety and that sense of immersion. It's the same thing when you watch a film. If old films like John Ford movies, they used to do that, where they just have a wide and it just on a tripod, and you're just shooting this action playing out for 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes in a wide shot. We're not seeing reactions, we're not seeing all this stuff, and there's something to be said about that era of cinema. It certainly powered the cinema we have today, but I think there's much more impactful in like seeing the reactions, seeing the reaction of, like, if it's a dom content, seeing the reaction of the farter, trying to get the reaction of someone being sat on, all this stuff. The angles make it more dynamic and more interesting and more immersive.
Yeah.
So that's
I
what
think
I
it's
try
so
to go for.
important.
Yeah.
Definitely. Honestly, everything you just said, I think we just need more stuff like that. Like more. Listen, I'm down for more of everything. Like more amateur stuff, more professional stuff, more. If everyone's like ethically treated and it's all consensual and it's really, I'm totally down for that. And I think what you were saying about the angles and the lighting, like that really resonates with me as well. It's really important, I think, when you're making stuff, to give that extra, because that is like the extra sort of special sauce that turns it, in my opinion, from content into like a little piece of art that you really loved and cared about. So, you know, totally. But I mean, I respect the hustle. I see if there's people out there that are doing this every day, all day, every day, making content. Like I respect it, because I could never do it. That's actually one of the reasons I don't use the OnlyFans platform, because I don't know. First of all, I did try to get into OnlyFans briefly when I first started out, but you have to get verified. You have to show them a picture of your passport and show them like a picture of your social media. So the only social media I had was like I have personal social media, but I wasn't getting that involved in OnlyFans. So I was showing them a link to my Twitter account. So there was some poor unpaid OnlyFans intern like having to look through videos of my parts and then like look at my passport and be like, no, we're not letting this guy on here. So I tried a few times to get verified, but I just thought I would feel so much pressure if I had this monthly sub that I had to justify and maintain. And I feel like it's like almost a little bit exploitative of the people that buy your content. Like I'd much rather film something, and then if they want to buy it, they buy it and it's theirs. They can watch it as many times as they want, and they have like a link to it. And I just, for that, it works better for me. I think it would take the joy out of it for me if I personally had to just really pump out the content. It's interesting because I was actually listening to, you did an episode with, was it Ruby Farts,
Mhm.
Ruby Red, Ruby
Yeah.
Farts, and she seemed like such a lovely lady. I loved that episode. But there's a bit where she talks about how some people might not realize it, but she's filming like a video and it takes several days to film because of just the pure like what your body has to go through to like produce farts, or if you're making your body produce farts. And it's just one of those things where it can take like a lot of effort and a lot of time, and sometimes physically can like feel uncomfortable, and you can kind of put your body through physical discomfort. If which I totally, when I heard that, I was like, girl, I totally get it. Like the stuff that I make, if I was doing that every day, oh my gosh, I probably would like damage myself somehow.
Absolutely.
So I totally get that.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. Something you touched on a little bit was your enjoyment of farting and inflation, but the kind of feeling of odds in the communities, specifically that some inflation fans are not like into farting at all. You even said some are like, no, we're definitely not. I'm not filming that. Maybe I'm not
Yeah,
releasing it as outtakes or whatever.
yeah.
Um, you know. Uh, Do you have any more of these differences you've noticed in the two communities, and do you have theories about why the differences exist?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it's definitely as somebody who's personally into both of those things, I have some content that I've made which is just purely one side, purely the other. I've recently started like blending, mixing the streams, where like I'll film like a video of me like farting for 5, 6, 7 minutes. It's actually filmed over the space of like an hour, maybe an hour, 2 hours, but I've like edited it down. And I used to just because I'd obviously have to like there's different things that I do to get gassy for a video, but sometimes you just have to pump some air up your ass. You know what I mean? Like I can't every day I can't just be like eating beans and stuff like that to make myself fart. And I think with like the type of farts that I like to produce and film, pumping air is just easier. It's not that I don't do other things, but um, this is funny. I was talking to Dill recently, Stinky DJ. We actually had a really lovely conversation, but we were kind of both talking about like whenever we're making content, sometimes you just have to pump some air up your ass. If you're like at a meetup or if your body's just not producing, and there's like people we call them pump shamers, where they're really like anti air pump, but it like kills it for them. They're like sometimes people even message you be like, "This isn't pumped, right? You're not pumping air up your ass, right?" And I'll be honest and say, look, like I do. I mean, this video in particular isn't, but I do that sometimes. Um, so I just thought that was funny. Like definitely is like there's like a group of people even within the fart community that are like, no, like they're very anti kind of inflation stuff. Um, but I did a poll recently, I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, where I was kind of feeling it out, and I got maybe like 200, I think maybe 200 votes. So like maybe like roughly 10% of the people that watch my stuff. Um, and it was like, how do you feel about me including inflation in my videos as well as just the farts? And it was quite evenly split. It was only slightly more in favor of yes than no. Um, and I think it just comes down to I think there's some people that really like farts, but they're not into like they might not be into plus size people or bigger bodied people, but they find farts hot. So they're kind of like they're not really that interested in my body. They just love like the sound that I'm making or like the volume of the fart, or maybe they're imagining the smell or whatever. And then there's people who are just not interested in that, and they don't like the maybe they find the inflation thing. I've spoken to a few people, and some people are like, look, it's not my thing, I'm just not really into it. I don't like seeing somebody because it's maybe it's kind of like maybe what you were saying earlier, Raj, about you've seen film scenes where someone's like inflating and it's uncomfortable to watch. You're kind of a bit it's not comfortable for you, and you're like, oh, maybe they're in danger. So there's a bit of that happening, I think. And then, so those are the fart people, and then there's the inflation people that love that. They love seeing like people's bodies expand and swell up and get really huge, but they hate the after effects of it. It like really turns them off. Probably because I think some people really link like farting and to shit. They're kind of like really, it's really gross and disturbing for them. So, I mean, they know that like you're pumping air into your body cavities, there's going to be farts, but they'd rather just not hear about it. They don't want to know about it. And there's some people that produce that type of content. I don't know how they do it, but they don't let out one single burp or fart or anything. And it's like, I don't know how they do it. Like, it's nuts. So it definitely comes down to just what people are into and what they like. But there does seem to be a slight majority for the people that who like my stuff where they're either okay with it being there, it doesn't get them off, but they're okay with it, or they're actually super into it. Um, I was kind of talking to one of my customers who buys my stuff, and I call them my customers, but they're just like my friends because I've never met them in real life, but there's some people that buy my stuff and I like talk to them most days. We talk about our lives. We talk about kind of like everything that's going on. So I feel like some people that I don't even like calling them customers because they're just like mates. But I was talking to one and he said, I was asking him about this, like, kind of what's your take on it? Because he's into both as well. And said to me, he was like, there's inflators who don't know how to fart then there's farters who don't know how to inflate or don't like to inflate, but you're in the middle where you are an inflator that knows how to fart and you're a farter that knows how to inflate. So he kind of said that, and I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. You know, but like I said, for me, it's like bacon and eggs, you know, tomato and cheese. Um, I can't think of any other like famous. They're all food related. I can't think of any other
Peanut
like
butter and jelly,
duos.
sure. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
I mean that was also food related, but yeah,
that was
it does
Starsky and
make
Hutch.
sense though. Starsky and Hutch,
Yeah,
that's true. It does make sense that I was thinking of all the and kind of like I imagine I can't speak for anyone and I don't want to, but like I imagine a lot of inflation like awakenings come from like cartoons where you see a cartoon character inflated, but there's always the inevitable deflation, which is never. I mean, it's never. Well, sometimes is farting or a fart sound like a balloon, but
yeah,
that was actually the other thing I had. Is like the balloon is like the fundamental inflation object in which when you blow it up it does produce a fart more or less depending on I
yeah,
guess how you
yeah,
squeeze it, but it's either airy or more bassy, but either way it is essentially doing that action. But again, this is not to tell people like they're wrong or
yeah.
they should do it in a certain way, but it's interesting. It is interesting that inflation and farting do seem to go together like a perfect pairing, and yet
They
there
kind
is
of
this
do, yeah.
separation.
Definitely. And I just see what you were just talking there. I kind of just had a thought that and listen, again, I don't want to speak for anybody. I like you say, I just think that I think one of the reasons that people who are really into the inflation hardcore, but they don't like farts or gas at all, I think one of the reasons they're really against it is because it kind of like interrupts the fantasy of it.
Ah,
Because
yeah.
like in those cartoons and stuff, there's this kind of extreme body transformation that's happening in front of their eyes, and there's some people who, when they do make that content, like it is literally an extreme body transformation, and you can see their body just totally change, and it's amazing. I think kind of letting go of that little bit of that little burp or that little fart, it just totally interrupts the fantasy. And they're kind of almost, because I think there's a lot of like animated stuff too. There's a lot of, really, really good sort of hot stuff on Twitter as well. Furry related, and I think there's like furry and inflation seem to go well together really well. But there's also like non-furry stuff too. I think a lot of those people are into the art too. So the kind of so the burps and the farts of it all are really like taking them out of that. But I mean, I think that really is only a really specific section, because I know there's people that are into it and love burps and farts, or they're, it's even when they're making art about it, they're putting them in there as well. So it's just one of those, it's a really specific faction, I think. But to each their own. Everyone's got their own thing that they're into, and I think as long as we're not rude about it, as long as we're not like dicks to each other about it, I think if because I have seen some videos where somebody, one or two maybe comments, someone was like, like, why you like, like they're letting out farts and burps, like less of that, please. And you're like, they're literally pumping air up their ass. Like that's gonna happen, To expect them to not do that at least once or twice is, I don't know, a bit crazy to me. But it's the minority. It's very much a minority. I've really not seen that level of kind of fuckery to any significant degree. It's very, very minor. Most people are either, if they're not into burps or farts, they don't say anything at all, or they make comments on it like, "Oh, that was hot," like that. So
Nice.
just one of
Yeah, and
those things.
it makes sense. The breaking not to justify it, but the breaking the fantasy does have it does make
Yeah,
the most
I think
makes
so.
most sense.
Maybe that's bullshit. Maybe it's not the case, but that's just from my kind of observing it. What
Certainly,
it seems
certainly.
like to me.
Yeah, it's certainly a valid thought. Uh, you talked a bit about your being plus size man in the content space. Do you feel like there's a stigma around plus size men and maybe especially content creators? And what do you think is or do you think there's a typical body type that's seen in the male fart content space?
Yeah. So there's kind of two different kind of parts to this. I think the first part is just content creation in general outside of like fart kink, and then there's kind of specifically within. I would say I have gotten, because there was a brief period where I was on other platforms like Reddit or I even started on like TikTok doing stuff for a while, but I was like, it was really brief, and I was like, this is for kids. Like, I'm not really. I was still kind of figuring out where am I going to do this stuff, and it was very tame. It was very tame on TikTok. There was no nudity, but it was just like I would get comments from people sometimes like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like you're 30 years old, overweight, like kill yourself, loser," like stuff like that. And that was very minor, like minority. There wasn't a lot of that, but there was, and the people who were leaving comments like that did seem to zero in on my size, like as a person. Um, I would say in the content space outside of farts, there have been a few people that have been like, I just don't really, I'm just not really into that. Don't want to see that. Can you put that away, please? When they were like referring to like my belly or my man boobs or like just my ass. It's I'm just generally like a bigger person, so I have more weight. Um, so I do think there is a little bit of sometimes like disgust and stigma, but I do think that there has been a huge cultural shift, especially in the last couple of years. Um, People who are like bigger body are definitely getting a lot more acceptance in the porn kind of content world. It's not, where I'd like it to be. And again, I'm only really speaking for in the man side of things. I don't really feel like I can't really. I think in the lady kind of space or the female presenting space, there's maybe a little bit more accepting because there's like BBWs and that's always been like a thing. I think for a long time. So I think when it comes to men, I don't know if there's a lot of like heterosexual porn that's successful with a lot of engagement with a plus size man involved. I don't think so. I don't really think there's a lot of that. And when it comes to the fart thing, I think when you look at the most successful creators that there are, they do tend to be slim or athletic white guys with the most engagement. Those are the people that tend to have the most engagement. So I do think at the tippy top and kind of as you get to the middle, there is like a lack of diversity in body types. And maybe like, I mean, there's a lot of super hot creators of color, loads. I follow quite a few of them. But it's just one of those things that I think when you there does seem to be like a disadvantage or the success is kind of skewed towards people who are more kind of athletic or slim. And again, in the kind of the content that I make, people telling me that there's not really a lot of plus size people. I think that kind of lends itself to that as well. Like there's just kind of a lack thereof. Not to say there isn't, people doing it. There certainly are. There's lots of hot people. I think maybe they're just not getting a lot of engagement, or they're not kind of specifically marketing themselves. They're just kind of like posting stuff for fun, and it's not like super super important to them to get any kind of to advertise, in that way. They're just kind of like, here's me, I'm just doing my thing, being big and fat and sexy. But yeah, I think in terms of solo content, there's not a lot of not loads. I think when it comes to not just solo content, but content where there's more than one person, so two people, there's like even less. There's even less kind of bigger bodied plus size people, kind of making content. But there's definitely like a few, like I say, really really hot people. But maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe I just haven't seen. But that's just kind of the vibe that I'm getting. I'm still quite new into this kind of space myself, so I feel like I am kind of still getting the lay of the land, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. One question that came to mind, I surprised I haven't thought of it to this point, is do you find your content appeals to people across the gender spectrum, or do you feel like it has a very specific audience?
I would say the majority of the people that watch my stuff are guys
Sure.
or male presenting people, like cis men, trans men.
Yeah.
Um, I will say I definitely I've got recently as well a lot of. I'm assuming they're female or female presenting. I mean, they're following me and they have a picture of a woman and they have a female looking name, so they could be bots, who knows? But I've had like a lot of females following me, and I have to say as well, I am absolutely cool with anybody enjoying my stuff. If you're male, female, non-binary, like I think I just love anyone kind of like getting off. So I feel like my mission on this earth is to like get people to, you know, orgasm to my bodily function. So that's, and I don't care who you are, you know. Um, I did notice a little bit when I first started out. There was a little bit of specifically within the gay fart kind of porn circles. I remember seeing some accounts that be like, if you're a woman, don't comment on my page, don't follow me,
Mm.
don't comment on anything. And I find that so bizarre. And I remember there was this female, I think she was also a content creator as well. And she messaged me. She said, "Hey, I love your stuff." And I said, "Hey, I think your stuff's great too." And she was actually surprised that I was speaking to her. She's like, I mean, I'm just not used to people replying to me. I was like, why? Why would I not reply to you? She goes, well, you're a guy and you have a following. And a lot of the guys she actually said, I've been told, messaged directly by people saying, don't you dare like comment on my stuff. Like, I'm not going to reply to you. I don't want you watching any of my content, which is crazy to me.
Oh yeah.
So not.
Yeah. Oh no.
So I always kind of make a point of it. Like, I think we need more kind of reaching out to the females in the community, because I think the gay male is very insular. It's very like kind of closed off. Um, I've always got time for the ladies on my page. You know, I kind of see it as like other women, especially in like the fart content world, as like a safe space for me. Because I mean, I'm not attracted to women, so it's a very platonic. And the conversations are always so nice. I'll even just send them stuff. I'll be like, look, here's a video that if you want, like if you want a video of mine, anyone that you want, I'll give it to you for free, because I just think we need to support the girls. And I've had just some really lovely conversations with some really good female content creators who are like working really hard and making really good stuff. And had some been able to share and trade content and like just give them, you know, like a bit of, I don't know, it's just nice. I think it's just really nice, and it's made me feel really good to kind of talk to other female content creators, and even like ladies who don't make content but they just like my stuff, you know. But I think, but specifically with the content creators, I think it's really cool to kind of give each other a boost. And you know, like I'll always like retweet stuff or share things, or you know, I think of them as like my coworkers kind of. It's like we're all working in the same gassy office,
Sure.
that sort of way.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I love that that feeling, because I definitely aspire to that in my film work, and you know, other places as well. It's definitely good to have that kind of rapport with your colleagues, or at least feel that way, even if it's not maybe that way in a physical sense, like having an actual water cooler to all talk around. It's a virtual water cooler. It's a Telegram group or something.
Totally,
Um,
yeah.
w-
I think that would be a cool thing to like create. Like the next thing would be, obviously, because you know, the podcast is all about humanizing and talking about like the people behind, you know, the kink. But I think it would be cool to have like a platonic space that's literally not, it's not for advertising, it's not for, you know, anything. It's really just like hang out and talk, like, you know, support the girls. But yeah, honestly, it feels good, and I think we just need more of that. I think just, you know, just
I
reach out to the
I
ladies.
I agree. And when I was thinking, here's the thing is, it's like, you know, the heterosexual side has the male problem of like, you know, there's no if there's no like females in the community, there's really nothing going on. And then, you know, female fart fans may also not want to be farters. They might not want to be, you know, providers in that way, not want to be essentially content creators, which is tends to be most of the females on the heterosexual side. Um, but my point of bringing that up at all was like, where else would female fart fans find content for? Because it's certainly not gonna most likely be from heterosexual fart fetishists that are, you know, because
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of reason to record their farts. Maybe
Mm,
they should be, I'm not sure, but maybe that's something to talk
yeah.
about and explore in the future. But um it's interesting, because I do know some have, you know, in Reddit threads or what have you, you see people like, hey, if you're a female fart fetishist, I'm also a fart fetishist, but I'm willing to fart. So I'm glad to see that kind of fair play is going about. And I think it's good that that's happening, because I think it can be very otherwise it's just commodified. It's really just really wholly commodified on the heterosexual side. So it's nice to have something. It's nice to feel like maybe something is changing on the heterosexual side, to find some greater sense of community.
I think so, and I think it just starts with like being really vocal and open about. Like I tweeted once and I said, like, ladies, this page is a safe space for you. Don't ever feel like you can't interact with me just because I'm a gay man that's attracted to male presenting people. Like, and I say, and like when I'm speaking to them as well, like, message me, feel free to message me, hang out, we'll talk. And it's always really positive. And I know that the people that I was speaking to specifically definitely were very open and honest about they were into it themselves. I know there's like a real problem with some people that are making content but not necessarily into it, there's that. And again, if you're not into it, it's complicated. That's probably like for another episode. It's a really like big can of worms to open up there, but
Right.
at the end of the day, I feel like as long as you're not hurting and exploiting anybody, you should be able to do what you want to do. But it can erode like the sense of community. I think if people are purely in it for financial reasons and there's no like affection there, like you don't have to like talk to everybody, respond to every message, but just like have a good energy, like have a good vibe, and don't be a dickhead. But it's just one of those things. It's definitely it's so different, the heterosexual side of it compared to the gay side. I
Absolutely.
even recently there was like a heterosexual man, not a woman, that was like making stuff, and I don't even know if he was into it. I was talking to him and I didn't get that vibe, but he seemed really like keen to make content, so I thought, well, why not?
Nice. Well, that seems like kind of the it's good that he was keen. Like, I mean, the mentality of the not people not into it, that's the can of worms you're talking about, of like the alpha jock bros and other things like that, right?
Yeah, yeah. He didn't seem like that. He didn't seem like one of those really like. I guess it's very antagonistic. I don't know, but some people really like that. You know what I mean? I've even had meetups with people where they wanted me to be that, and it just wasn't something that I could really pull off. I just wasn't comfortable with it, you know. But he didn't seem like that. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things. I think as long as if you're authentic as you could be, even whenever you're doing something that maybe you don't get gratification from sexually yourself, I think if you can find something that you enjoy about it, that will come through. That'll shine through, and that'll become apparent to other people who might consume your content. That's how I feel.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway from that. And you clearly talked about this aspect, which is like you clearly use content creator. You have your content creation clearly is a way to or can be a way to have real conversations with people within the fetish.
Yeah.
And would you say
Mm.
you've even made lasting friendships through that? And do you have anything more to talk about in that area about like connecting with people through content?
No, definitely. I mean, I would say, I think just the kind of person that I am, I just love a chat. You notice, Raj? I mean, I've talked your ear off this whole episode.
Oh, not at all. No.
Um, yeah, and I'm really just not trying to put any more like negativity that's already in the world. I'm not trying to add to that. And I'm a people person, and I do just generally enjoy talking to people, and I definitely use my content as a way to connect with people who share similar interests to me, or even just to find out about people that are different to me in a lot of ways. Um, like I have this one guy that buys my stuff, and he's not. He's like, because I just assume that people are like getting sexual gratification from watching my stuff, and he was like, no, I don't jerk off. I just watch. I just think your stuff's really funny, and I'm like, really? Like you're not? And I loved it. I was like, this is awesome. That you're, because some of my stuff is like really quite sexual, Raj. It's quite explicit. If anyone that's seen my stuff, some of my at least is like explicit and sexual as a naked male body can be, in that sort of context. Um, and so that was I always loved just learning about people, and I found that particularly interesting. He was like, "Yeah, I get no sexual gratification from it. It's just funny to me." And he's like, what's your next video?" I'm like, "You do realize that it's me like in a bathtub, like being naked and like farting a lot?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, that's fine." So I like to give people, if they make it clear to me that they're not into it sexually, I'm like, "Okay, so trigger warning, like you're going to see my naked body. Are you okay with that?" Um, and they usually are, and they usually appreciate the heads up as well.
Sure.
But yeah, definitely, I have met some really lovely people. Oh my gosh, I had recently had like a meetup with somebody in London, who I met through just through making content. He was just somebody that messaged me and wanted to buy some of my stuff, and we just ended up having a really great conversation for a couple of weeks, and then we got to meet up in real life, and we had like the best time, even like outside of like the things we wanted to do, like in the bedroom. We just hung out and talked. I think we were like talking for like 10 hours straight. um, you know, so it was really. I would say it's genuinely the people that I've met, and the reason I keep doing this is because I genuinely feel like my life has been enriched by meeting these people and talking to them, and listening to your stories. There's like so many people that I talk to all the time now that I consider them my friends, and we have really lovely conversations. And yeah, it's like genuinely just really wholesome and nice. I feel like I can't. There's too many people for me to even name, or yeah. But I just, yeah, definitely feel like the love and the connection, and it's been nice, like to have this total avenue of social interaction, like outside of real life, like friends, family, work. Um, it's been really cool to have this whole other avenue of like ability to speak to different people, and obviously like speaking to you as well, Raj, like meeting you and having this opportunity as well. It's one of those things. It's like this wouldn't happen if I wasn't doing what I'm doing. So, I feel very lucky, and I feel very grateful.
I'm glad. I mean, I'm happy to be speaking to you as well, because I too enjoy the uh the connection aspect, the just getting to know people and hearing their
Yeah,
stories and finding out about them is really special to me. Do you feel
yeah.
like you've run into it seems like you don't even have parasocial connections to your content, or do you find any enjoyment or problems in that area? It seems like you're almost connecting with people, um as many people as possible. So do you even see a parasocial connection to your
I-
content persona, as
yeah.
it were?
So I definitely would say that while I am a people person and I have some really like positive, nourishing experiences, it feels very like healing to like meet people and become friends. It can be exhausting sometimes, and I think there's something that you have to kind of work out whenever you decide to like commodify yourself and make money, by selling yourself. Kind of like it's kind of like you're at Disneyland, but you're the ride, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and you kind of have to like, you do have to please people in a way. And I am a veteran people pleaser, so that's something that I kind of struggle with. Kind of when people aren't happy, and I have to stop myself from getting too sucked in. Because there'll be sometimes where people are like, "You're not responding to me fast enough. I want to buy stuff from you, and you're not getting back to me right away, and you're not." And I have to remind people. I'll give people maybe a couple of warnings and say, "Look, I this is something I do for fun, but I have a full-time job. I have other things in my life to maintain. I have obligations that I need to kind of put time into, and sometimes I have to be quite firm with people and be like and manage their expectations. And there are some times where, because you do have a fixed finite amount of energy, and I've met so many great people, but I can't, every single person that I speak to, I can't give that same level of energy. And there are some times where, unfortunately, people are like, "Hey, how's your day? How are you going? Like, what's happening?" And I have to kind of go, "Look, I'm not really looking to, I hope you don't mind, I'm not looking to maintain like this kind of relationship with you. If there's anything you need from me, absolutely, in terms of content, you want to buy something, you want to, you have questions, even if you're not wanting to buy things, but you have questions about that, that's fine. Totally happy there, but I'm not. I hope you understand. I'm gonna kind of leave this chat where it is now, and I'm not gonna keep it going every day, all day, because some people do kind of get like attached, and I think that's a problem that I run into. I think because I am so willing to give energy and time into social interactions with people. I think sometimes people have expectations which I have to set. I have to kind of manage those, and I have to kind of um, maybe break their expectations that they're having of me. So it's I mean, I know I made it sound like it's all sunshine and rainbows, but there definitely is times where I have to maintain boundaries. And that was something that I struggled a lot at the start to do because I was so new at it. And even before I started like selling my stuff, people would be like, give stuff to me now," and I'd be like, "Oh, okay," because I guess I wanted them to like me, so I'd be like, "Oh, okay, is this okay? Here's like a 5-minute video," and he's like, "Yeah, what else you got? Give me more," So I had a bit of that,
Like a
and I had
mugging.
to
Like, what is that?
kind of, yeah, like just take it, don't hurt me, I'll give you everything. So I kind of have to really, I had to really kind of manage that, and like I said earlier, like the way I do things now is very different to when I started, and that's one example of that. Like you have to kind of, a mugging is actually a very good way to put it. It's a very, no one gets hurt physically.
I
It's
mean, the
more
way
just
you put it,
emotional.
it's basically like the only thing you didn't ask for is your wallet. Like that was very
I know.
interesting.
I know. It's one of those things. I think you just have to be really, and I'd say to anybody that's like wanting to commodify themselves in this way, and like, your time essentially kind of becomes money, and you have to really be sometimes strict on how you're spending that currency.
That's precisely it. Yeah, like it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, and it kind of leads right into my next question of like you talked a lot or you've shared some of the negative aspects of being a content creator, such as um the potential for body shaming, which I believe you said you ran into, and the expectations people have. But you also told me in the messages we had before the interview that you find fart content, making content, empowering for your self-esteem and
Yeah,
mental health. Can you
yeah,
talk more about that? And like, what was it you felt like you were struggling with, and how did making content help that?
yeah. Totally, I can talk about this. So, I think one of the ways that really, really helped me was because, like I mentioned, um, I in my 20s were like a little bit rough in terms of like body confidence and like feeling good about myself and stuff like that. So I think it was a lot of it was to do with the guys that I was kind of interacting with, maybe just picking the wrong people. But the minute that I started like incorporating this into my sort of everyday sex life, the people that I would be doing stuff with changed. It was people that were into the kinks that I was into, and it really, there was this like form that it was very freeing. First of all, it was like just letting go of. It was like a shame thing, just letting go of that, because like here's this other person that's just like me, so I don't need to be like grossed out by it. And then also just like feeling really validated in a way that I'd not felt before, like people being so attracted to me rather than me. Like it went from like, I felt like initially I was used to people maybe not being people's like first choice, just being like oh, I guess we'll do stuff together, I guess why not? To like people being just very like, very, very into me. And I'm used to being like more into them. So that was very different. And I guess it sounds kind of sad, like mental health struggle can be fixed with like just people finding you sexy and attractive and like being nice to you, and like doing things with you, to your body, that and you doing things to them. But I think it really kind of just jump started that like internal work that I needed to do, inside myself, kind of seeing other people validate me and be like, okay, so no, you're actually like the baddest thing walking in these streets. um kind of made me kind of maybe believe it after a while, and the things that I would hate about my body, things I didn't like, became things that I started to love because other people loved them too. So it started that like process. And then I think now where I'm at is like everybody has body issues, right? Body confidence. No one's feeling like 100% like a porn star all the time. But I think on the days where I'm not feeling like that, I just kind of remind myself of like that feeling. And maybe it's like a form of delusion where I kind of like, okay, today is the day that I'm not feeling like super hot. So I kind of put on this like I just sort of it's almost like putting on this mental psychological cloak where I'm like, delusion, mode activate. I'm like, you are hot as fuck and lots of people are into you and you have the literal proof of that every day if you want to. So um I'm making myself sound like I'm the hottest thing on planet Earth, Raj, and I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just trying to explain the kind of the process that my mind has gone through the last couple of years.
That makes sense.
Um,
No, it makes a lot of
you
sense.
know,
I mean, I too am someone who has struggled with personal confidence, and
yeah,
I think it's that I think it's you talked about it early on in the interview, or at least I parsed it out. Is I feel like you started on the journey of self acceptance, and it may not
yeah,
have given you everything you needed to,
yeah,
to feel and start. Like you said that it kicks. You said the newfound attention was what kickstarted the
yeah,
process for you, the self-improvement, or the personal, maybe the mental self-improvement, as it were, the self-image
yeah,
improvement. um
yeah,
but I really feel like it was most likely you uh essentially getting this is me assuming, but you got tired of like not accepting yourself, and that you started on that
yeah,
path to start, like you said, you started making and sending videos privately, and kind of reaching out in that aspect to people who are interested, um kind of beyond this vanilla sex time you were having. I think it's very possible that, yeah, it's just, through accepting
yeah.
yourself, you started to gravitate towards and find the people that accept you, or accept ourselves in a more general sense.
Yeah.
And then it snowballs from there. We start to feel our worth, because our worth is now being validated, and that further makes us feel like, oh, well, let's keep improving. Let's go after our goals that maybe we thought were impossible before, when we didn't have the confidence, the acceptance, and the validation.
It's all about like reframing how you think about yourself in your mind, and also sometimes like how you look at yourself in the mirror. I don't know what it is. Like I I just had a lot of self-loathing for my body in my 20s, and I'm definitely fatter now than I was then. But I look at my body now and I'm like, I actually kind of like, that crease there, that fold there, or how I look at this angle. You know what I mean? Like it's stuff like that, where you kind of get that little bit of validation. But I think people can tell you all day how hot you are, but if you don't believe it, if you don't like internalize it in some way, you kind of have to do that inner work a little bit too.
Yeah,
And I know it sounds awfully shallow, but it really has like been part of that process of like integrating this part of my sexuality, which has always felt very outside and other. And it's like part of that body acceptance has kind of brought in those other sort of aspects and sort of kinks as well. And it's helped me feel like way more kind of active and present, whenever I am in the bedroom with somebody. And it gives me more things that I can do to like turn them on and arouse them and like arouse myself. So it's kind of giving me all these tools, that I didn't have before. So that's what about it when I mentioned about it being empowering. I suppose that's what I was talking about, in so many words. But yeah, so I suppose that's what I meant whenever we were emailing each other.
sure. Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate the explanation there, and that.
I do have a question for you, Raj, if you don't mind. I don't mean to
Not at
derail
all.
you, but
Please. I mean, I was gonna just say we are coming to the close
yeah, we're
of the
kind of
questions
over.
I have, but not a no time thing. It's just this is
Yeah.
I always say this when it comes down to the last few questions. But I was gonna say, like, is there anything you wanted to add or ask, or what have you? Yeah, please feel free.
So I just in the vein of like, how accepting and your own kind of kinks and proclivities, and with or without farts. I don't know how much you want to go into that, but has that changed how you feel about yourself? Of like bringing, because I'm sure there was probably a period of your life where you weren't really engaging in those things in a sexual way. So there's like the Raj before and the Raj after. So like have you experienced anything where you felt like a shift or a change in how you feel about yourself, as like a person who can please other people, or give affection or love? Has that changed at all, sort of incorporating these your kinks into the bedroom?
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Sorry I took a long pause. It does
No, that's
absolutely
okay.
make
It's fine.
sense. What I I do think incorporating them into me, or another way to, as I've said in this episode a couple times, is self-acceptance. The self-acceptance I've uh gained, in doing that, which wasn't even, honestly, it occurred during this show. Actually, I think during the first season, the first year,
Oh,
I was, and not that I was not accepting, but I still wasn't like integrating the things I was even talking about. I was in a therapy type session, and I think
mm,
the way she was hearing me talk was like very empowering towards the podcast, but not maybe towards myself and the way I was talking about
yeah,
myself.
yeah. It's
Um,
like an external source of achievement rather than something that is part of you and what you're doing.
Precisely. And I think that changed. I think that was when I realized, oh, I do need to stop fearing that I'm not going to find someone who has this fetish, and then, mold myself around this idea
Yeah,
of what I think someone should be, if they're
yeah.
not having this fetish, but with, people in a, I guess, normative sense. But that was at that moment where I realized, oh, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to fully embrace it. That's when I became a little more even more public about the podcast, and saying it in the right context, not just all the time. But it's part of my media creation repertoire of, like, I stream,
Yeah,
I've done film stuff, I've done all this stuff. So I'm definitely proud of it in the same way,
you should be.
as a media project. Absolutely. But it also has this connotation of a community project. Like, I'm not super worried about the monetization of it. I'm more wanting to connect with the community and maybe improve the community if I have that power, if I have that ability
Yeah,
at all. But really, it's to connect in the community, and I don't know, maybe be something. Because when I created it, I was at the end of, I realized I'm also getting verbose now. When I created this, I was at the end of my creative rope. I was just like, I don't know. I
yeah,
don't, nothing I'm making, sketches,
yeah,
whatever, they're not hitting. So maybe
mm,
this aspect that I've been hiding all this time, maybe that should be brought to the light. Maybe that's what I should
yeah,
do. And if you go back
yeah.
and listen to the first episodes, they're me just ranting. They're not interviews, which I
I
think
was
has been a
about to
much
say,
better element. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't want to like sound like a dickhead. I remember listening to the first couple of episodes, and of course they were great because it's like really novel, and this has not been done before. So, but I remember the tone. You felt quite angry,
Oh, sure, yeah.
and but I was about to say, like, you sound so much, not even just us talking, but the episodes that have been coming out for a while, you just sound much lighter and much more jovial, and I don't know, I can sense like the healing that's happening however wherever it is, and I just wanted to say that, like, you sound much lighter, you sound, I don't know, just happier. Is
Well,
is that like fair to say?
thanks. I think it is. I think it is. I appreciate that. And to actually tie it back to your true question, or without that back, without all that
Yeah.
back knowledge, yes, I do feel like maybe I haven't been able to find partners to incorporate the play into the bedroom with, but being
Mm,
open about it um, has been enlightening in its own way. It's been uplifting in its own way, and
yeah,
has made sexual encounters actually, to maybe be a little too crass, but have made sexual encounters actually feel like they are something I can do. Because I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I haven't had many sexual partners, and with this
yeah,
fetish and I wasn't sure how that would ever work. And I kind of
Yeah.
have I maybe this is too much information, but like I tend to be more of a pressure masturbation guy. So that's not really
Yeah.
conducive to like pumping type sex or like
Yeah.
insertion intercourse or what. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm failing to find the right word, but but
Penetration. Penetrative
penetration. Thank
sex.
you. Yes,
That's the
penetrative
one.
sex. Thank you. So, but
You're welcome.
finding partners that can maybe accommodate that or find a way to
Yeah.
work around that and explore and be willing to explore that. So yeah, I think maybe I haven't been like now drowning in like fart play as it were, but
Yeah.
but it has absolutely accepting myself, the self-acceptance aspect. That's why I kind of pitch it as so
Yeah.
important, is because it's kind of everything. If you don't accept yourself, it kind of, it's what you said earlier. If people can tell you you're hot or great or whatever, or talented or anything all day, but if you don't feel it, if you don't believe it, if you think you're a fraud or what have you, then it doesn't really matter what external forces are coming in, because you don't believe it. You think
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
belong there or whatever. And once you can get past that, once you can and self-acceptance also means flaws. Like I don't mean to say like only accept the
Yeah.
good things and
Totally.
forget the bad things.
Yeah.
Self-acceptance is all of it. We all have good and bad, and self-acceptance is just learning like, oh man, I maybe do that and that's not great, but
Yeah.
I like that. I kind of find someone who appreciates that, kind of like that's weird, but like I like it. It's a weird
Totally.
thing that I like, and I have to accept that about myself. And
Yeah.
then when I do, I think I don't know how much I believe in like auras or law of attraction or whatever. Maybe it's true, maybe you're not. I'm not poo-pooing it. But like I think when we accept ourselves, we radiate the energy that brings
Totally.
the people we need to meet, the people we or should meet to us
Yeah.
much more easily. It's somehow known. Maybe it's as simple as we talk about it. It's as simple
Yeah.
as something we share with people now because we accept it in ourselves. So yeah,
Oh, that was really beautiful, Raj.
I'm glad.
That was
I'm
a
glad.
beautiful answer. You put that so well.
I'm glad to hear it.
You're very good at this, by the way.
Oh,
You are very
thanks.
good at this. This is like a talent. Have you done podcasts? Like, is this your first podcast, kind of speaking to people this format? Like, you've not done this before. Is this your first kind of
This is my first interview
platform like
show.
this?
Yeah, absolutely. I have never
Yeah.
really done like anything like this. I've only done acting. Like I've acted in stuff. I've done voiceover. Um, but I haven't done anything like, hey, let me talk to
Yeah.
people. I do really appreciate the cooperation I get with the guests too, of like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about what you want to talk about first? Let me craft some
Yeah.
questions. That way I can actually feel like I'm prepared to
Yeah.
one, I'm prepared with a a script, as it were, questions as it were, but also that gives me the comfort to be a little more off the cuff and a little more like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't write this question, but now I had a thought because I am prepared in other ways that I don't have to think about the foundation of the interview. I can worry more
Yeah.
about the nuances or things that I find interesting, which is maybe why I sometimes get into tangents.
A bit of improv. Yes.
Bit of
And
improv, yeah, a little less. Yeah, exactly, precisely. You got it. You got it.
yeah, I was going to say, like, it sounds like your acting skills have really helped transfer across, at least somewhat, to interviewing strangers about the personal minutia
I guess
of their
so.
daily lives.
I suppose. I
Yeah.
suppose so. I suppose so. And I guess it's just a general curiosity, because I really do enjoy hearing about people, and part of the reason why I think I started this podcast is I think there's a selfish element too, of like I want to figure out if I can find out more about my origins by listening to other people's,
Yeah.
because I don't know exactly how this fetish started for me. I have theories, and then the domination aspect even more mysterious, I'd say. So finding those things out is intriguing to me. Not even just for myself though. I really enjoy it to learn about people and learn about their backstory and what makes them tick, because every story on this podcast has been unique and interesting, even if there's some similarities.
Yeah.
It's been a very interesting exploration to, go down people's histories and find out how the fetish is for them, how it's similar, how it's
Yeah.
different. It's great.
I think it's really important to have these conversations, first of all, because I think because this is obviously a topic, because we've talked about lots of different things today. It's
Yeah.
not just one specific thing, but a lot of this stuff just is not talked about because a lot of people don't feel like they can speak to anyone about it. They don't feel like I mean, I'm lucky enough to have friends and family that are very supportive, and even just not just people in my real life, people that I've met online, that I can talk to and feel very comfortable talking to. But I'm sure there are so many people that don't have anybody, or they had people and have been very like poorly treated because of like, which is so lame, like treating somebody badly because they're into farts, like whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so I think for people who don't have anyone to speak to, it's really important to have something like this, like a podcast where people are just you because you're just reminding that like there's a human behind the kink, and I think it's reminding people themselves like there's a whole person under there, like behind the thing that the thing that you're into. And I think specifically for people who are really really tortured by it and really really like having a really bad time and feeling very alone because of like something just like what they like to do in their spare time when they're in the bedroom. I think it's really important to have a podcast like this where they can just relate to it and just literally be like, look, here are all these people that are into the same thing that you're into, and they're doing okay, they're doing fine, they're talking about it, and you can do that too. And it's just the humanizing of it all. I think is really really important because there's just not enough of that, especially in like the sort of not even just like the fart world, just like porn in general. Um, I think people have a fascination with it, but I don't think people spend enough time just talking about like the humanity behind it, the human nature of it. So I think it's just really important to have that, you know. And this is what you're doing, which is really cool. It's just really cool. I like it.
Yeah, I'm glad because definitely I agree with you. The human element, it's a little bit why I started streaming video games too. Not to get on a tangent, but like I started streaming video games as a bit of an extension of this because I didn't think like I'm going to be a streamer. I'm not even super
Yeah,
interested
yeah,
in chasing that thing. I
yeah.
didn't I didn't even do a react video to GTA 6 despite how much I play GTA. It's like I don't really want to follow trends. I don't want to be a content creator in that way.
Yeah,
Like I enjoy
yeah.
making content. I enjoy making what I consider art. I don't know if this podcast is art, but I enjoy making
It's
things that
hard.
that have.
It's
Well,
hard.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, and that kind of brings me to what do you think? What do you think about the future of the fetish? What do you think it's going to be like? What do you hope
Yeah.
it is like? What and whether you're talking about just yourself or the fetish at large?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I think for there to be a future at all, you need things like this, like a podcast like this, where it has a really specific goal in mind and a really kind of specific angle that's new and fresh. So that's number one. I do feel like we're in this, a lot of people have said it, we're in this kind of renaissance right now where I feel like it's never been as accepted as it currently is. And there's this huge kind of like there's a lot of creators and there's a lot of new creators they're making things, which is really cool to see. And some are monetized, some aren't, and there's definitely issues with like content theft and people stealing content. But I think there's this real culture that I'm noticing. I have personal experience where people are really supportive, at least specifically with my kind of like the male kind of fart community. I can't really speak for the hetero stuff because I know that that's a whole mess over there. But there seems to be like a culture that's being cultivated where people are supportive of each other. There's certain things that they're not going to stand for. And I think we all just kind of have this like desire to treat each other as best we can because I think we've all kind of been treated badly at one point or another. So that's really I think that's like evident, and I think that's something that's really been developed over the last couple of years. I think I'm lucky enough to have come into it when I did, when this kind of me started to happen. Not saying that I was the start of it, you know what I mean? It's like I've happened to be around during this time, So that's nice. And I think the future, I think, is just going to be, like I said earlier, I think it's going to be eventually quite normalized and very like blasé almost. It's like, oh, he's into this, like whatever, we eat ass, we piss on each other, we like feet, we like fart and burp, like it's one of those things. I think it's going to be like that. Who knows how long it's going to take, but I do think that I think eventually there probably will be some kind of like specific dating app platform for people like us who are into these things. I know there's a few ones that are not specifically for it, but they have other kind of tags and things you can kind of include if you're into that. But I think there probably will be eventually something like that. And who knows? Like, I don't know if I'm going to be doing this like 10 years from now. I don't know, but I'm going to do it as
You mean
long as it.
making content?
Yeah, I know, maybe.
Or do you
Maybe
mean
I'll have.
you don't even know you won't even be in the fetish anymore? Like interested, you're saying?
Oh no, that's definitely no.
I
It's
see what
in
you're
the
saying.
fetish for life for sure. It's
Gotcha,
definitely like a
gotcha.
lifetime thing. But in terms of content creation, I don't know if I'm going to be doing that for like another 10 years. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I think the future's very positive and it's very bright, and I think it's really only going to get better from here, personally. So that's my kind of Miss America answer
That's great.
to that
No,
question.
no, that's great. I love that. I
But it
love that
starts,
framing as well.
yeah,
Um, I
it
have
starts here though. Like it starts kind of what you're doing is really like the start of it, kind of, and we will continue as we mean to go on, that kind of thing. Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. Not at all. I know. I hope you're right. I hope it does. I hope it does start this fire, this wave. Even if it, other podcasts that take another direction or same direction. I don't care. I'm not looking. Like I said, it's not about monetization. I'm not care about competition. If somebody has
Mm,
an idea or other people, other sects of people they
yeah,
want to interview or whatever they want to do,
yeah,
like I think it's like you say, we just need more of everything
yeah,
in a way, whether it be like adult content, if there's like not if there's vanilla ways to take this content to people, like maybe movies or whatever, all kinds of things. That's what we need, in creative ways that work,
yeah,
in creative ways that reach the audiences in the right way, with the tone that you're either want or like acceptable with. Like if you're like, hopefully you're not making a drama and then everybody finds it funny, but
yeah. Yeah,
maybe be open to that too, if it's possible, if maybe
yeah,
people can accept it as a comedy drama. Like, what is it, The Room, the most famous bad film,
yeah.
that was supposed to
So
be
bad it's good.
serious and it's very bad. So maybe
Yeah,
there's room for that. It's really just about how to get acceptance, how to get the exposure in front of people in a way that is entertaining, because that's all that really matters, is entertaining
yeah.
people.
That's it.
And
True.
they'll bring their perspective to it, whatever it may be, and maybe they'll change it, maybe they won't. We just don't know.
Yeah. I know. It's funny that you mentioned earlier about like maybe there's going to be another podcast. Maybe there'll be competition in the market. Oh, I was speaking to Dill, again, friend of the pod, Stinky DJ.
Yeah.
We were laughing about like because we were talking for like I think it was like maybe 2 hours. And that was this is definitely a whole other podcast episode. Dill he was telling me about some drama that was happening in a group chat where it was like for farts, but there was like a civil war happening where they were divided because there was straight content creators that were coming in. They're not into the fetish, they're just there to make money. And then there was people who were like, why are straight people invading our space? This is our queer space, why are they here? And then some people were like, let them do what they want, they're not hurting anybody. So he was telling me about that, and he was like, should we just start a rival podcast and let Raj know that there's going to be a new podcast on the scene? We even workshopped the name Who Cut the Cheese. Now it's in development, there could be another name there, but we were like, how mad would it be?
That's great. No, it's great. I think
Yeah,
it's great because, I mean, if nothing else, that's the thing about, like, on the media side too, but not to get too like deep in the weeds, but like that's just more exposure. That's more
yeah,
more eyeballs on your content or your perspective or whatever. And the other thing is like, yeah, all the interviewers are going to be, different. They're going to have a different way of taking it. They're going to have different questions. They're going to have different, life experience that colors the way the podcast goes. So I welcome it. Like I welcome to hear
Bring it on.
someone else's questions and someone else's
Yeah.
like how I like hearing the same interviews, the same guests on another podcast. I think will be super interesting.
I think that would be cool. You could be our first guest.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
You'll be our first one. Listen, if this ever happens, you'll be the first people that we call.
That's great. No, I really appreciate it. And really, honestly, the Wizard Fartbane, this has been, and I want to give you the full gravitas. Let me say, even in fact, the
thank
Wizard
you,
Fartbane,
really.
I cannot thank you enough for coming on and talking to me on this interview. This has been super enlightening. We've talked about so much, and I just really enjoyed the conversation with you. It was really light and friendly, and just like you are really a delight to have on and speak with. So I'm glad.
Honestly, Raj,
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop you there.
Okay.
As I've been interrupting you all podcast. As you can't see, but I'm bowing to you right now. This has honestly been like, it's like bucket list moment for me, and I just think it's really cool that you even give me the time of day to like have a chat about this. I'm super down to come back if you ever want to do another episode. And honestly, I'm a fan, and I've had so much fun. It's been so cool just getting to talk to you, and you've been so open with me as well. Like you've been like, answering my questions that I my curiosities about you, and I just think that you're class and very much needed. And I'll stop being too nice to you and getting soppy, because I don't want to get that ego out of control.
Sure. It's there. It's right there. It's on the surface. Yeah.
It's been so much fun, and I honestly can't wait to like hear the episode whenever it drops. Like it's going to be super fun to relive this like really nice conversation. I don't know about you, I was a little bit nervous. I don't know why. I was just a little bit nervous. Because I don't know, like this is the first podcast that I've done, so I'm like, what do I say if I say something wrong, but yeah, I just want to thank you for giving me the time. It's very cool, and keep it up, keep doing what you're doing, because it's like it's so fresh and new and necessary. So
well, I appreciate. I can't respond to everything you said, but like I was very close to tearing up, because that means a lot. I really like. It means a lot. Like I appreciate that. The efforts being seen, and it's doing something for people, because that's really what it's about. That's what it's about, and why I care about this. Because if this continued like the first episodes, this podcast would have been dead a long time ago, because it's really the conversations and the guests we have. Because I don't have that much fart stuff to talk about, or fart news and like what's going on in the business, but talking to people and hearing it, hearing about them and the community they exist in, is amazing, and it teaches me, it teaches all of us, I think, so much.
Totally.
So once again, the Wizard Fartbane, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you may be doing.
Thanks, you as well. I hope you have a good day. All right.